So today's date is September 25th, 2020. It is the second day of our fourth unit, and the title of today's lesson is the carbon cycle. So by the end of today's lesson, you will be able to describe how photosynthesis and respiration depend on each other by creating a carbon cycle. And we will also hope to explain why respiration depends on photosynthesis. So we're starting to tie in the two concepts that we introduced yesterday. So you really, really want to have access to the notes that you took yesterday. Hopefully they were taken on paper and you can just flip over to them as needed, but we will be referring back to that lesson. So hopefully you've either had a chance to look over your notes, you have access to them, or you had a chance to watch yesterday's lesson if you weren't present in class. So yesterday we introduced a concept called aerobic respiration. Does anyone remember? Hopefully you all do. But can someone tell me what aerobic means? What does aerobic mean? What does this word aerobic mean?
Like free oxygen or something like that?
Aerobic means that oxygen is involved. Good. So that means that this specific type of respiration involves oxygen. And we can see it. We can see this equation down here. So if you have not written this equation down, you need to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to leave this up for a couple of minutes so you all have an opportunity to write down this equation. We did write it down yesterday. So if you were a part of yesterday's lesson and you took notes, you don't need to rewrite it, but we do want to make sure that we understand what this equation is telling us. So this is chemistry, ultimately, but this is the intersection of chemistry and biology. So this is the chemical reaction that takes place, and we call it aerobic respiration. This is happening in all of your cells in your body almost constantly. It's the process by which C6H12O6 and O2 react to create CO2, H2O, and ATP. Can someone tell me what C6H12O6 is? What does this mean?
Carbon dioxide.
Glucose.
This is glucose. C6H12O6 is glucose. This is sugar. What about O2? What is O2?
Oxygen.
Oxygen. Excellent. So O2 is the specific type of oxygen that exists in our atmosphere. It's what we breathe, O2. So those two things, glucose and oxygen, they react, meaning they get combined, they interact with one another in a way that changes their chemical shape. Oops, I'm sorry, go back. And what we produce is CO2. Can someone tell me what CO2 is?
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide, excellent. What about H2O?
Water.
Water. And then ATP, does anybody remember what ATP is? Okay.
At
Go
this
ahead.
point.
Not at this point. ATP, we don't really need to know what it stands for this level of biology, but we should know that this is energy. This is cellular energy. So if you haven't written that down, please do write ATP equals cellular energy. So this is what we're most interested in. We're using glucose and oxygen ultimately to make these 36 ATP molecules. That's what we're really most interested in. Now, this process could not really happen if it weren't for the help of enzymes. Enzymes are catalysts. If you remember back in our first unit, enzymes are catalysts, so they speed things up. So this reaction relies on enzymes to take place quickly. Like I said, it's happening all the time in your body because all of your body's cells need ATP. They need energy. Okay, I'm going to leave this up for 10 seconds, give folks a chance to finish writing and processing what this equation says. All right. So if we know that the word aerobic means involving oxygen, it means we do have oxygen, then what do we think the word anaerobic means?
You don't have oxygen.
Exactly. Anaerobic means the absence of oxygen. We do not have oxygen. So there really are, we talked about this very briefly yesterday, there are really two categorizations of respiration. There's aerobic respiration, which involves oxygen, and there's anaerobic respiration, which does not involve oxygen. So this is what you should write down on this slide. It says anaerobic respiration occurs without oxygen and creates only 2 ATPs per molecule. Anaerobic respiration occurs without oxygen and creates only 2 ATP molecules per glucose. All right. So this is really important to note because, as it says here, anaerobic respiration only creates 2 ATPs. So if we remember, ATP is energy. So anaerobic respiration is only creating 2 of the things that we need to create energy. Whereas aerobic respiration, the type that does use oxygen, creates 36 ATPs. So what this means is that aerobic respiration is much better at its job. It's much more efficient. It creates a lot more stored energy. So in real life, this is important for our bodies because what it means is that our bodies really prefer to do aerobic respiration. You get more energy from aerobic respiration, you get 36, than you do from anaerobic respiration when you only get 2. So that means our bodies really need oxygen in order to produce energy. Our bodies need to really do 3 things. We need to be able to breathe well to take in oxygen. We need to be able to pump our blood well to deliver oxygen. And we also need our blood to carry oxygen well. If one of those 3 things is not working or is failing, then your body can very quickly be in serious trouble. If you're not breathing well, that's a problem. If your heart's not pumping blood well, that's also a problem. And if your blood is not carrying the oxygen well, then that's a problem. Now, our body can still create energy without oxygen. That's what we're talking about with anaerobic respiration. We can still make energy. We can still make ATP without oxygen, but we just don't do it as well. So think about when you went through a very strenuous exercise or workout. You're breathing really heavy, your heart rate is up, you're sweating. Anytime you get a chance to take a break, you want to put your hands on your head or maybe put them on your knees, or maybe you want to, kneel down for a while to catch your breath. What your body is saying is, I've run out of oxygen. And so I'm not able to do aerobic respiration anymore. I can't create these 36 ATPs. That's why you're running out of energy. That's why you're starting to get tired. Additionally, your body is still making ATP, but it's using anaerobic respiration to do that. Specifically, it's doing a type of anaerobic respiration called lactic acid fermentation. Lactic acid fermentation occurs only in animals because we have muscles. And when our muscles aren't able to get enough oxygen, they start to do this lactic acid fermentation, which means that they're doing anaerobic respiration. They're not using oxygen to make ATP. In addition to making ATP, they're also making lactic acid. And that lactic acid builds up inside of your muscles and it causes cramps. So take the time to write down everything that you see on this slide. Lactic acid fermentation occurs in animals. It's produced in muscles when they can't get enough oxygen, and this causes a cramp. And please also write down this chemical equation as well. Okay, so again, if your body is not able to use oxygen for aerobic respiration, it will start to do anaerobic respiration, specifically lactic acid fermentation, which makes lactic acid build up in your body and it causes cramps. It can cause cramps. The other type of anaerobic respiration is called alcoholic fermentation. This only occurs in yeast and bacteria. Alcoholic fermentation occurs in yeast and bacteria, as I just said, and it converts sugar, aka glucose, into alcohol, aka ethanol, as well as carbon dioxide and energy. So again, because this is anaerobic, we only end up with those 2 molecules of ATP. Compare that to aerobic respiration when we get 36 molecules of ATP. Alcoholic fermentation is still not the first choice, but yeast and bacteria use it to convert glucose into energy. Okay. So can someone please help me out with these chemical equations? We've got a word bank down here that really tells you what should be in these 4 boxes, but I'm hoping to find out what the reactants on the left side and the products on the right side of these 2 reactions are, of these 2 equations. So what are the reactants of photosynthesis? What do I need for photosynthesis?
Sunlight.
Sunlight and carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide and what? What else?
Water.
Water.
No
Excellent.
water. Sweet.
So these are the 3 things that I need to do photosynthesis. These are my reactants. What do they produce once they react with each other?
Glucose.
Glucose and
Oxygen.
good. So for those of you who are kind of unsure about these answers, please make sure that you are writing down these very simplified versions of the reactions. Please make sure you're writing it down. So photosynthesis uses sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to make oxygen and glucose. Aerobic respiration, on the other hand, what does it use?
Enzymes.
ATP. Enzymes.
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide.
Okay, all 3 of those. Well, we can say enzymes. Yes, we can say enzymes, but not. It does not use ATP. It produces ATP, and it does not use carbon dioxide. It produces carbon dioxide, but what does it actually use?
Glucose.
It uses glucose. What else?
Enzymes.
Oxygen.
Keep in mind, it is aerobic. What does aerobic mean?
Oh, energy. Well,
It doesn't use energy though, right?
sunlight.
Not sunlight.
ATP.
That's what
Not
it is.
ATP.
Oxygen.
Oxygen. Thank you.
He just
Okay,
started
so we've got
painting
oxygen
himself.
and glucose. Now, look at this before I go any further. The products of photosynthesis are the reactants of respiration, of aerobic respiration. I literally just took them from over here and put them down here. That's important to note. So what goes over here?
ATP.
ATP is the most important one. What else?
Glucose.
Not glucose. We already have that.
Not glucose.
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide and one more thing.
Enzyme.
Water.
Water. Good. So the enzymes are used in both. We use enzymes for both of these reactions to speed them up. So please make sure you are good. Now, also, just like I took oxygen and glucose from over here and I put them down here, I take I take water and CO2 and I put them down here. So we just literally just switch. We just switch. And this is really the source of our carbon cycle. We're just taking carbon and we're just changing its form from one reaction to the next. I use carbon dioxide to make glucose, which is a source of carbon. Then I use that glucose for respiration and I make carbon dioxide again. So it's just a never-ending cycle. Carbon moves from the atmosphere to plants in photosynthesis. Plants use it to make glucose. Then animals eat the plants to make ATP. But in the process, animals breathe out CO2. And that same CO2 then goes right back to the plants. So it's a cycle. All right, let's play this quick quiz. So this is, in order to do well on this quiz, I want my 80%. I want my 80% class average, which means that you all need to have your notes out. These questions have been covered over the last 2 days. You should be good with them if I can ever get the quiz to open. All right. So I'm going to send the link to the chat, or you can just go to joinmyquiz.com and enter the join code 885033. Yes, ma'am. Alyssa, we did not have a recording from Wednesday because we were just doing, it was kind of like a catch up day. So I didn't record that lesson, but I will upload the lesson from yesterday right now. We've got 14 people in our game, but we have 21 people in the chat. So I'm going to wait 30 more seconds. All right.
Is this a grade?
No. All right, let's try to get that accuracy back up. Let's see if we can get it back up. Good job, Kyrie. 10 in a row. You too, Alyssa and Makyron.
How many times do we take this?
How many times what?
Do we take this?
The quiz is?
Yeah.
We're just doing it for now, just this one time.
Oh.
Oh yeah, you did. Wow, excellent. You're the first person in any of my classes to do that. Good job.
Mr. Rudd, I got 100.
I'm sure Kyrie used his notes for all of those of you who are
Appreciate it.
wondering how he did that. He probably had access to his notes as he was doing it. I see we're finishing up. We have several people who are still working. Well, I'll give it about 3 more minutes until 12:52, and then we'll head back to the notes so we can finish up. Okay, about 1 more minute to finish working, but congratulations to those of you who are at the top of the leaderboard. Our accuracy is 63% as a class, so below the 80% that I'd like to see for all of our exercises like this, but it's not horrible. It's not irredeemable. So we're in the right direction. We're headed in the right direction. For those of you who struggled, based on what I've looked at and the questions that we've struggled with, I can tell that you have some misunderstandings about the chemical reactions, photosynthesis, and respiration. So I'm going to spend some more time with this slide here. And without all of the chemical jargon, the C6H12O6 stuff, without all of that, I want you to write this down if you do not have it written down. This is a very, very important slide. You have to understand the reactants and products of both of these reactions, photosynthesis and respiration. The good part about it is that they are mirrors of each other. They're opposites of each other. So I'm going to spend some time here in the hopes that those of you who have not been taking active notes will write this down. If you write nothing else down, this is it for today's lesson. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Dang it. Okay, so for the next 3 minutes, try your best to fill in this Venn diagram. You've got a word bank on the right side of your screen here with all these different terms. Try to categorize them in the right order so that you put them in either photosynthesis or respiration or both. You got about 3 minutes to do that.
Well, you write that down on the paper or something?
Yes. And try to put all these different terms into the correct circle, whether it's just respiration, just photosynthesis or both. All right. So this is what hopefully your Venn diagram looks like. And I will leave this up after I discuss it so that you all have an opportunity to make sure it does look like this. But photosynthesis needs carbon dioxide, it needs CO2. It takes place in the chloroplast of plant cells. It also needs water to happen. The end result of photosynthesis is that it creates glucose, and it also needs sunlight. Photosynthesis happens in the leaves of plants. It also, in addition to glucose, makes O2, which is oxygen. And it only occurs in plants and some bacteria and algae. Respiration, on the other hand, makes cellular energy, which is ATP. It happens in the mitochondria of eukaryotic cells. It needs O2, which is oxygen. It uses glucose. It breaks down glucose. Sorry. It makes CO2, carbon dioxide, as well as water. It can also take place in the cytoplasm of prokaryotic cells. So remember, we talked about this yesterday. It takes place in the mitochondria of eukaryotic cells and in the cytoplasm of prokaryotic cells. And all living organisms, all living cells must undergo this process of respiration. It must create energy. So I'm going to leave this up and give you all an opportunity to make sure you've copied down that Venn diagram correctly. About 1 more minute to copy this slide down. Make sure that you have all the terms categorized correctly. All right. So there's a concept of the carbon cycle that we've briefly talked about. We've got about 20 minutes left in class, so we will watch one of these videos. But the carbon cycle is a concept that discusses how carbon moves from the atmosphere to plants to animals and then back to the atmosphere. Okay, so this image really shows what happens. Carbon dioxide has been a part of Earth's atmosphere almost since Earth was born, for the last several billion years. And once plants developed, they converted this carbon dioxide into glucose. That's what photosynthesis is. So the carbon dioxide that was in the atmosphere then got absorbed by plants. Of course, animals eat plants, and those plants contain carbon. And so when animals like you and I eat the plants, we also are using that carbon, and our bodies are made up of a lot of carbon. And when we breathe, we return carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Also, animal waste contains carbon, and animal waste is used as fertilizer to make more plants. Dead animals, when they decompose, the carbon that was a part of their body also gets returned to the soil and can be used as a fertilizer for additional plants and fungi. Humans burn carbon all the time to drive cars, to operate ships and trains, to provide heat and electricity. So there's this ongoing cycle of carbon that exists in our atmosphere between plants and animals. Is water wet? That's an interesting question. Not sure what it has to do with this lesson, but we can debate that at another time. Let's watch this quick video.
It all starts with the sun. Energy from the sun reaches the chloroplasts of a plant, and by taking in water and carbon dioxide, the chloroplast will convert energy from the sun into energy locked in the bonds of glucose. Oxygen is also released as a byproduct. This process is called photosynthesis. The mitochondria take the products of photosynthesis, which are glucose and oxygen, and break the bonds of glucose to harvest lots of ATP in a process called aerobic respiration. The products of respiration are the reactants of photosynthesis, carbon dioxide and water. The goal of respiration is to make ATP, and ultimately, the energy to make ATP came from the sun. So you could argue that all life on Earth, including you and me, are solar powered. Thanks for watching this episode of Teacher's Pet. Don't forget to
So that was just a quick episode or a quick video to explain that carbon cycle again. And I love that it points out that the sun is ultimately the source of all of the life that we have on this planet, but also the source of all of the energy that we have on this planet. Okay, skipping that. Again, photosynthesis and respiration are mirrors or opposites of each other. So we can see that photosynthesis, which is at the top, is the reactants of photosynthesis are the products of respiration, and the products of photosynthesis are the reactants of respiration. But we can see how carbon moves through both reactions. I've got 6 carbons over here in the reactants of photosynthesis, and then I've got 6 carbons over here in the products of photosynthesis. This is something that you all will talk a lot about in chemistry. This is a law of nature called the law of conservation of mass, essentially stating that what you start off with, if I start off with 6 carbons, then I have to end up with 6 carbons. Mass cannot just simply disappear into thin air. So you'll talk more about that in chemistry, but that's just a preview. What I do want you to write down is this last slide. And when you're done writing that, you can go into Canvas and do our exit ticket and the assignment for the day. Which is called explaining the carbon cycle. But you don't need to draw fancy pictures or anything, but you should try to depict this cycle in some way. Write down what these words are depicting and explaining. Once you're done writing that down, you can go into Canvas and knock out our assignment and exit ticket for the day. All right, so we've got 14 minutes left in class. You should spend, 3 minutes copying this slide down, then transfer over to Canvas and go ahead and knock out the assignment and exit ticket, which you should be able to do in about 10 minutes.
We use some Google Docs, right? And then submit it to Canvas.
No, if you you might need to refresh your assignment page, but there should be a button that says submit assignment. If you click that submit assignment, a text box will come up and you can just type directly into that text box. That was a good question.
Mr. Rudd,
Yes.
on question 4, the exit ticket, not all the answer choices are popping up.
Not all of the answer choices are popping up.
It's 3 of them, but only 2 show up.
Okay, give me a second. Okay, Joseph, thank you for bringing that up. Let's see. Give me 1 second. If you refresh your page, hopefully you don't lose all your answers, but that problem should be fixed. But I appreciate you bringing that up.
I'm confused.
About what?
On question 4, question 4, it say only 2 of the answer choices.
Yeah, that's what Joseph just brought up. You'll probably need to refresh the page, and it should be fixed.
I did, and it's still the same thing.
Mr. Red, I just got back. What are we doing?
I didn't know you left, Brian. You should be, at this point, you should be working on your exit ticket and the assignment for the day. So Unit 4, Day 2 exit ticket, and the carbon cycle assignment. Kyrie, you might just need to back out of it and go back into it because I had to go in and edit it. So you're seeing the unedited version, which is why I told you to refresh your page. But if it's still not working, then you might need to back out and go back into it.
Mr. Rudd, when I came out of it and went back in, it said that I submitted my test. What made me submit it?
It made you submit it?
Yeah.
All right, give me a second. Sorry about this. It's not your fault, it's my fault. Okay. Try it again, Kyrie. I just changed it so that you have multiple attempts.
All right, I'm done.
Okay, folks, it is 1:20 now. So I will let you all go and begin to get ready for a fourth block, and then you can enjoy your weekend. I hope it's a productive and relaxing weekend. And if you need anything between now and then, please let me know. Keep in mind that these units do move quickly. So in order for you to stay on top of what you have going on, please make sure that you dedicate the 10 minutes every day to completing the warm-up and the activity. They really don't take much time at all. Like I said, if you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out and enjoy your weekend.